things first, you already win. You already him, you don't gotta pretend. Fuck them, you already king. You stay real, you confident in your skin. It's all now, sit in the power that you already in. It's the story of a master from a true Bedouin, far away from home than few ever been. First round pick, league of the smooth gentleman. The game rigged like 50 said it's a cool sentiment. I'm from the era when lyrics and bars is over everything. 5-star veteran. Couldn't walk in my fucking shoes or carry an excuse. My borderline is very thin. Been married to the game like ever since maybe 2010.
Yo, what up? It's how Billy sees it. It's November 10th. It is Shiva's birthday, by the way. Applause for that. Oh. Give a double applause for my baby on her 37th birthday. Yeah, it was good, man. We woke up this morning. Shiva wanted a massage. We got her a pro massage. It was a nice 90-minute joint. Really got the full body going. She came out feeling relaxed, and we just chilled. And then later on, we actually just came back from eating out at a restaurant that she likes and I like too. I wouldn't have picked it the second time, and she picked it. She was like, "Let's go back to this." I was like, "Ah, let's fucking go," and it was really good. It was really good. So it was a good time. Yeah. You're so lucky. I'm so lucky. Thanks, babe. Thanks for being you. And for being around for so long and taking care of yourself. And so, yeah, yo, we keep rolling. Applause for that. Happy birthday. This is episode 111 on the How Billy Sees It live stream show. 111. Are you kidding me? That's fantastic. Get really aggressive for some reason, son. And it's also episode 27 in the 30 for 30 context. Or is it 28? 28, I believe. 28. We got 2 more after this. 2 more episodes in this marathon episode run. 30 for 30. It's been going pretty good. We've been covering a lot of ground. Check it out. I think it's some epic stuff. I think we've covered some great stuff over the last month, you know. Proud of it. So in the last couple of days, actually yesterday, for the first time, I read one of my poems off of my website, billybunton.com, one of my written works. I read Unlearning yesterday. Applause for it. And today, we are going to read another one. We're going to do a different one. This is one, let's go right to it actually. Whoop, whoop. This is called In Defense of Feelings. I wrote this in November 2023. Oh shit, about 1 year ago. It's November 18th. So within a year ago from today. And I guess this is what came out back then. I was stumbled on it again recently. And I said, you know what? I'm going to do an episode on this. Yo, applause for that. And here we are. All right, so similar to yesterday, I'm going to jump in, I'm going to read, and then I'm going to jump out whenever it feels like a good time to jump out. So, yeah, let's get into it. In Defense of Feelings. Are you strong enough to acknowledge truth and feel, or not? Are you honest and creative? Are you honest and creative enough to tell a complex story about yourself? Describe the feeling. I think it's important. So let me, I'll pull out right now, yo. Let's jump right out. I start off with that strong sort of question. Are you strong enough to feel? Because I want to lean right into the supposed tension that one might feel about that. Typically, if you're a boy, I was raised in a sensibility that strength comes from the capacity to not feel. Strength is, it can be described as the capacity to operate unfeelingly, to not let your feelings bog you down, and to exist in a more logical, goal-oriented, you move without feeling. And this poem, I want this written work here to be a direct challenge to that. It's called In Defense of Feelings for a reason. And through the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes, we're going to describe why it's important to have feelings and why the whole concept of not having feelings is garbage. And it's a great opportunity to kind of trap people, and particularly men. Are you strong enough to acknowledge truth and feel or nah? Are you honest and creative enough to tell a complex story about yourself? Describe the feeling. We're gonna go back in. Uh, when we oh no, wrong one. Oh no, wrong one. Oh, here we go. It's right here. Okay. When we diminish and hide our feelings, we trap ourselves in an incomplete world where other people have power over us. When we, men, falsely externalize feelings as a domain only for women, we shrink and deny our reality, trapping ourselves in a goofy world where other people have power over us. When we overvalue logic, right? That's just contrast. If contrasting, overvaluing logic means to undervalue feelings. We have limited our scope of vision, trapping ourselves in a blurry, inaccurate world where other people have power over us. Um, yeah, let's pull out again. Feelings are a part of what is. Feelings are a valuable part of like the signals and the stimuli that help you understand, what the proper directions are. Um, the idea that boys and men shouldn't have feelings is a really damaging and terrible thing. Everyone by now kind of gets that. There's just a few holdover doofuses who really hold to the idea that like men should be like these like robot stoic. Not even I don't even want to apply the word stoic there. That'd be a misapplication of what stoic means. Stoic doesn't mean to perform stillness, to perform unwavering, unfeeling, um, like performance. Stoicism has to do with a detachment, a capacity to be present, and a detachment to specific outcomes, right? Pressing forward with your own inner thing. This is me summarizing it. So I don't even want to put stoicism there. But when we diminish and hide our feelings, we're trapped in an incomplete world. We're told to look at logic. We're given a logic. And here's what I think. Typically, when we think about logic, we think that there is, the logic that we hold is the map of the world. It is an accurate description of the world that we are engaging with, called the logic. And I want to say that no, quite often the logics that we hold, we're holding a narrative story, which is like a requirement of logic. Logic requires words. Logic, sort of by its nature, it's something that needs to be described, needs to be shared as like an explicable set of assumptions through words, and they they aren't telling us something about the world. They're actually providing, like, the map isn't, if you're focused too much on the map, you can actually miss the world. You can actually be looking at your logic sets, at your understanding about, okay, this is what black people do. This is what white people do. This is what the economy does. This is what a government does. This is what humans are. Human nature is this. A woman never does that, and a man, and all of these stories, and that is a logic. It's a map, and you can fail to actually be in the moment and to see reality. Um, and I think like a capacity to feel gives us an opportunity to be present and to engage with something new outside of a logic set, outside of a typical sort of inherited logic set. The challenge with feeling, though, is that it isn't clear cut. Feelings need to be interpreted, but they don't need to be interpreted immediately. There is room, there is time, there is space for sitting and accepting the feelings. I think one of the problems is like instead of feelings, we immediately cling to a logic, a story that can we can cling to in sort of as an explanatory basis, as opposed to like being in the feeling. When I say sitting in the feeling, I mean literally to sit without an explanation, to sit without a story, without words, without tricking yourself into like the notion that you know something, and just sit there and engage with the weirdness of life and the difficulty, and allow it to shape you. Yeah, applause for that. We're gonna go back. We're gonna go back in. Starting here, when we overvalue logic, undervalue feelings, we have limited our scope of vision, trapping ourselves in a blurry, inaccurate world where other people have power over us. Logic is a highly corruptible domain because it relies on language and pre existing explanatory narrative. Anything that I call logical, or I say, well, here, and I give you a logic story, I will have to be using words. And I'll be using words in a specific context. And I'll have a bunch of assumptions at play. The feeling domain doesn't attempt this. The feeling domain has to contend with how imprecise it is and how uncertain things are. A lot of times, like stuff that's been going on over the last several years here are absurd. We're dealing with absurdities on absurdities. We're dealing with monstrous stuff, but people move on with a kind of resigned logic. And I think it's in part due to it's a way to not have to sit and feel how ridiculous and absurd and dangerous and goofy and silly things are. You have been given what you call logical. You might be able to articulate a logic for chattel slavery. They did and they do. Yeah. Again, because it relies on narrative, someone can orchestrate a logic narrative for chattel slavery. They will simply describe a bunch of quote unquote so-called benefits. They can even weigh those against a couple of harms in their story. They will overweigh the benefits. They will talk about benefits in a certain way. They will talk about harm in another euphemistic sort of way that, playing into whatever end result that they want. And boom, you have a logic. You've been given what you call logical. Whatever it is that you have in your head that you call logical, you've been given it. You might be able to articulate a logic for chattel slavery. They did and they do. There's a logic for why men should never wear pink. There's a logic for why something as simple and as innocuous as wearing a color should be something that half the human population should avoid in some people's heads. Or wearing your hair long, or dancing in certain ways, or speaking in certain ways. And this is not something chill. Like, this is what adults are carrying. Adults carry this. There are adults in positions of meaningful power who consider themselves to be intelligent, hold all of these weird logical things that can be explained, and they'll be like, yeah, it makes sense. There are those willing to offer a logic for murdering 4,000 children in a month. Read the US press in the 1930s and 40s to find straightforward logic for extrajudicial lynching of black children. Read today's press for logical arguments in favor of bailing out banks and funding senseless wars while American families struggle to pay rent and without health care. It's easy to organize words in favor of all these things, stringing words together to form a narrow logic. But how do you feel about them? How do you feel about them? Now you have to put them in a different context. You have to actually weigh them against a set of values that will be in the feeling comes from an internal compass and an internal set of values. You might have been told a set of values that told you that 4,000 children don't matter, or that some group of children in a certain part of the world don't matter, that it doesn't matter, that these are animals and the children of animals. And it's the same thing that was taught to Southern whites during the years of chattel slavery. If someone were to speak up and say, hey, why do we have the right to do these things to this group of people? Well, here's a logic for it. And that logic seeped into the journalism. It seeped into the history books and the science books. And it was agreed upon as a logic. And as we know, a great deal of the history, if you read writings from Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth down into the civil rights era, John Lewis and Martin Luther King, and a lot of the preoccupation, the effort towards the white audience was to appeal to a feeling, to appeal to something beyond the legal writings and the logic of the society. It was an appeal to the shared human condition. It was like, yo, feel, look at us. We, say, I'm a man. They would post they have a poster that says a man was lynched today. Had to assert that these were victims, these were human victims of an evil system, not just fodder. You would have to feel in order to get that. You'd have to be moved and motivated by something deeper than a set of logic points, and social assumptions and definitions and words that your society held. We aren't past this. People might have to talk about, oh, are we past race and all that stuff? Obviously, we're not. No, we're not. We're not past that. But beyond, like, race is one element of this. We aren't past. We haven't grown out of this kind of like infancy of thought and social association and language and communication. And I think there's several reasons for this, but some of them are really intentional. It's really troubling to me, which is why I write stuff like this. Let's continue on. Applause for that. The dominant culture teaches that there is virtue in removing one's feelings. You must understand that this is a social construction, a mass psychosis. Remove your feelings. Right now, they don't want you to consider what American military adventures mean abroad, and what it does to families, what it does to societies. They want you to keep going to work. No, don't look over there. Keep going to work. Don't worry about that stuff. We got this. They will, everything from dehumanizing the victims to just lying. We don't see, you see it all the time in the press conferences. Like, we don't see, we're still waiting on a determination. We're doing another investigation. We don't see any war crimes and blah, blah, blah. They just kind of delay and distract. And that's, it's important for them to do that because they know the power of you actually being able to access your feelings and properly interpret them and to alchemize your feelings with your logic, to include your feelings with your logic as opposed to simply just moving based on a presumed logic absent feelings. A learned and trained separation in the mind. You must understand that this is a social construction, a mass psychosis, a learned and trained separation in the mind. Check my video, Love, Separation, and Kendrick Lamar. Without feelings, without the intuition, we have no counterweight to the supposed logical domains, which have been mapped in their favor through powerful myth narratives and conscious framing. Everything that people talk about when they say things about sort of this amorphous, invisible white supremacy, I have some issues with this word and the way it's been used. But when people are talking about broadly some of these social conditions of white preferentialness, white skin, light skin preferentialness, of course, nationalism. These are logical domains. They can be described, and you're expected to believe them. You're expected to understand them. They have a certain internal logic to them. But there's also times when they meet up against, when they contradict themselves, when they bump up against a moral challenge. And we are asked to subdue our feelings and our internal intuitions about this and to simply move forward with the logic. And that's something we have to move past and move through. With enough time, their preferred myths can be codified as precedent and as law. The next generation of children will be raised up and taught the assumptions of whatever power structure they're born into as obvious and logical. When Black people talk about the pervasive and quiet power of white supremacy, they are often pointing to this complex phenomena. I find that people who don't train their feeling muscles are often stunted, unclear mentally, quietly stuck at war with themselves. Men in particular who commit to or strive for a masculine, unfeeling performance will more easily follow orders. Why? Because all they have is a logic. The hierarchy logic. In the military, of course, there's a very strict hierarchy logic with strict and clearly delineated hierarchies, titles, badges made evident on the clothing so that everybody knows who is in charge, and you are not you're generally dissuaded from having any sort of from breaking that hierarchy, from challenging that hierarchy. I won't speak as someone who's been in the military in any capacity, right? This is just me speaking from the outside, but that's a tool of control. In some ways, it's a necessary tool in a condition like that, with what their goals and aims are, and role and purpose is. But in a free society, you have your feelings, and men who have been trained to disassociate from their feelings are stuck with nothing but a logic and have to sort of reflexively react in accordance with that logic. Men in particular who commit to or strive for a masculine, unfeeling performance will more easily follow orders. Why? Because all they have is a logic, a narrative about the legitimacy of power and hierarchy, which provides them an easy, parentheses, false lens for truth, validating itself immediately in their minds. Without grounding principles, what else is there beyond fearfully navigating the social landscape? Without a grounding integrity set of principles rooted in self-awareness, rooted in our connection to the infinite and to the divine, and recognizing that infinitely internally and externally. Without that root, then what is there? Oh, there's get money. Oh, there's try to be powerful. Oh, exert dominance. All these Machiavellian logic stories about sort of what it means to be successful, how to navigate this world. The internal consciousness sounds something like, I fully buy, this is in quotes, I fully buy into the logical narratives as given to me. The whole arrangement, the cameras, the stage. If the important looking white man at the podium says something, anything, then I guess it must be true. Of course, these days it doesn't have to be a white man. It can be a black man. It can be a woman. It doesn't matter. Um, the people at the podium can be swapped out, in and out. But it's important to know that the podium and the cameras are all present, and the things that they're saying are representative of a set of interests, and that um, things are more complex than that. And you might need to tap in if the people at the podium are going to be using a set of language. I said this before, like if you're in a room where everyone is using the word bitch to describe somebody that you respect, everyone might have agreed on that. That might be it might be logical. There's a set of terms that agree that that person, yeah, bitch is an accurate term here. We're gonna call it, and you need to be able to, if you say that you respect this person, you have a connection to this person, you need to be grounded in your own truth, so that when you're called upon, when it's your turn to speak, okay, if you're not going to like out and out defend the person, at the very least, when it's your turn to speak, you don't just adopt their language. You don't just adopt the language of the room. You speak about the person with the words that you want to choose. So you're not just calling them a bitch because everybody's calling them a bitch, because you're not grounded. And it makes social sense to not challenge the room and just kind of adopt that language. And that is why you have to feel. You have to experience yourself deeply and learn to accept that all of you is okay, your fullness. Applause for that. We've all been trained to label and experience parts of ourselves as good versus bad. In truth, you are what you are. Those value assessments are based on a logic that another external human gave you. It all comes back to the self, and it all comes back to recapturing and reclaiming the ground and the capacity to set your terms, to give language to your feelings, to trust your feelings and your intuition and your gut, to not be swayed by the room, to not simply follow what is socially acceptable, what seems to have a logical backing. Because in this world, the stuff we call logical is actually not quite logical. It is a set of social agreements in a context, often in a political context, whether that's made clear to you or not, a political historical context. We've all been trained to label and experience certain parts of ourselves as good and bad. Those labels, those experiences, those concepts, good and bad, are social constructions, is perspectives. In truth, you are what you are. Those value assessments are based on a logic. Shedding these words and concepts in favor of a more cohesive, fluid feeling leads to self-clarity, self-love, love for others, and a massive stash of creative energy. Facts. Oh, yeah. Acknowledging and incorporating one's feelings also gives us the best opportunity to ascertain reality. You can't ascertain reality if you haven't grounded yourself this way. You are merely engaging with like shadows and vague silhouettes of what is, because you have inherited language that isn't quite yours and isn't quite accurate. It doesn't take into account what you know. And you know all of these things. In so many videos I've talked, it's so funny, afterwards I realize how much we are trying to like build and empower, to talk about like how powerful we actually are, as opposed to how we are sometimes portrayed and how we sometimes think about ourselves. You know that you have this. I realize that I'm talking to people who it's a matter of like being reminded, and then being willing, having the strength, the willingness, the love, the faith, whatever you need to like step into what you know. We end in the last paragraph here. Are you creative enough to tell a complex story about yourself? Describe the feeling. If words don't exist yet, make them up. Combine other words and know that these are valid parts of what is. Without them, you're only experiencing a silhouette of reality. Yeah, I'll just end off real quick. This is another, like, this is a bit of creative writing that is pointing to something that's real. It's pointing to something that's real, yo. We are talking about the human condition after all. Um, and when you see people, particularly men, I think because we've been taught so much to avoid our feelings, it really is a trap. It really is. And I'm so lucky. This is Sheba's birthday. I'll end off with just like really for people to get a partner, to find a partner or a friend or something, someone in their lives who leaves room for their feelings, um, and leaves room for their fullness. When men find that, and they are also mature enough to like not ruin that, to actually step into that space and engage with their feelings, I think I think it changes. I think it turns into just a different mode of masculinity altogether. Um, the masculinity that you see in the like the manosphere, the Andrew Tate stuff, the Ben Shapiro stuff. Even now, people are saying that dude Nick something, Nick Fuentes. I think he did a like he posted or tweeted your body my choice. Like he's mocking women for their what is potentially gonna make it harder for them to have abortions and such. These are like stunted children. These aren't men. The manosphere stuff, they're teaching boys how to trick women into sex. They're teaching boys how to hate women. How gay is that? How gay is that to teach boys to see women as their enemies instead of as partners and friends and allies and fellow humans, and to help boys understand that whatever they're seeing in women, that women are humans and part of this cultural thing, and that it's incumbent on all of us to be kind and see each other and to like detach from all these things. How terrible is it for these manosphere dudes to tell boys to not have feelings, their goals, high value, they're only valuable if they're rich, um and that women won't like them unless they're rich. And if they're rich, they should hate women. They should try to trick women back. Like most of these men are never going to be rich. Most of these boys are never going to be millionaires that they try to scam them on. But also that instead of processing your feelings, if you have feelings and anxieties around being rich, recognizing that that's like a social construction, that you are whole and that you are loved and you are valuable no matter what your financial income is, despite all these markers in our social space, that the feeling of being unwhole and unloved, that's something that can be worked out, that it's not true, right? Instead of these guys have these massive platforms, and instead of helping boys become men to feel confident to step in as productive leaders and good husbands, good mates, you know what I'm saying? Um, they teach them to hate women. I think it's part of the gay agenda. I think it's an effort to put such a massive wall between dudes and women that that like I don't even know what he wants to do. He wants to just monetize men so hard through this thing that they all come to him and they all have like, this little club, this little like He-Man Woman Haters Club full of like 40-year-old men and 20-year-old boys, 20-year-old kids. It's just absolutely weird. It's the reverse of what I'm trying to talk about here is about accessing yourself and accepting yourself and actually getting to know yourself. And I think that's actually the root. That's the first thing that happens. I think when someone does that, they immediately can't. You can't listen to Andrew Tate. You can't like gain any benefit from him. you realize that it has nothing to. There's no benefit in that. For yourself or for the people around you. And it's all one thing. All right? We're going to wrap it up there. That's the end of that episode. We're going to pause there. And we're going to start the meeting. And listen, it's all one thing. And you really are seeing the shit that you are looking for, yo. So make sure you love yourself. And make sure you feel, this was episode 28. We got 2 more episodes in the 30 for 30. We are keeping it rolling. I'll see you tomorrow for episode 112, yo. Peace.
Maybe these critics is wrong, maybe you twice as strong. What if every fear and doubt was gone? I'm up first, bright from dawn, like fuck it, we yawn. I squeeze life, pythons bite when the mic's on. Peace, I might respawn. I hook left with the right arm, living in 5-star, ring the alarm. My full nature is still greater, I'm twice born. Inevitable, that's the fucking level I'm on. Picture me lost, I'm differently raw. Been through the muck, most y'all instantly boss. Now I'm strictly the boss, drippy, hood hippie couture. Feeding these bitches till it's ripping they jaws. For y'all fans of the bullshit, me flicking it off. I damage your whole clique, these clowns really pissing me off. My verse is heat, and scripted is law. Like bitch, you fucking know who you singing across, huh? Okay, you got their attention now,
I keep winning.
You just gotta keep showing them what it is,
I
man.
keep winning.
Your shit different for real, though.
I keep winning.
Yo, stay away from the politics,
I
though,
keep
my
winning.
dude. They still not getting the message, kid.
I keep winning.
They still don't